you. We're going into the newspaper story. So as we do, we encourage you to join us and send in your contributions via comments to our WhatsApp number, which is 0809 444 0981. You can tweet at us as well if that's the way that you choose to communicate. Just use the hashtag freshlypressed981. And last but not least, we are streaming on YouTube. So please go over to youtube.com/smooth981FM Lagos to see our faces, and hello to everyone out there in YouTube land.
All right, we'll start with this story from Premium Times newspaper. Offa bank robbery, Saraki demands probe of death of principal suspect. So yesterday we got news from all the newspapers, most of the newspapers, the major papers in the country, that the principal suspect in the Offa bank robbery that killed up to 32 people and affected over 5 banks, that the principal suspect is dead. He was declared dead. But the president of the Senate, Bukola Saraki, has called on the presidency to institute a judicial inquiry into how and when the principal suspect in the April 5th deadly bank robbery in Offa, Kwara died. He said, reminded Nigerians really to recall that the time that the principal suspect was killed, he already knew, and he made the release of that information, and the police still denied several times, saying he was still alive, giving vague details as to his whereabouts and all that. Cheta, please, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, given that the police tried to rope Saraki in, I understand his reaction, but I think that it's shameful, really, that we have to be having the president of the Senate, effectively number 3 citizen of the country, demanding a probe into it's something that should happen naturally. A suspect dies in police custody, and a probe should follow by default. I think this is what I would ask Saraki to do, really, is to concentrate on the Police Act Reform Bill being in which is sitting in second reading by that was instituted by Bala Naala. It's a very good bill, and this police penchant of killing something that has to be something that is looked at in the bill. But then we now talk about enforcement. But here we risk going off the rails a bit. Let's recap this. Michael Atiku, he was a dismissed police corporal. He confessed to planning the robberies in an interview with the Daily Trust on June 2nd. And the police initially tried to make it a sectional thing. He was from Benue State, or he was from Benue State, he's late now. But when that didn't fly, they roped him in with Saraki. And then what happened was that last Sunday, they gave an update on the investigation so far into the robbery, and he wasn't among the suspects that they paraded. And some journalists noticed that. So yesterday was Wednesday, but yesterday when Jimoh Moshood gave a press conference and published a list of the suspects, those journalists also noticed that his name had been removed. So he wasn't paraded. His name had been removed from the list of suspects. So they asked, and Jimoh Moshood said, oh, he's still in custody. And by the time
that question was asked before yesterday.
That question was asked before. The question started on Sunday. When the parade was done and he was in there, that was when the question started. But the direct question which Jimoh Moshood answered that he's still in custody was yesterday. And by the time digging happened, a bit of digging, it emerged that someone somewhere said that he's dead. I mean,
and that was because they had to, appear in court.
Yes, they had to be arraigned in court.
The judge said that they could not continue the court process, because
without
they need to amend the charges and remove the name,
remove his name, and then more importantly, going forward, even the judge, it will be difficult to prove who supplied the weapons that were used for the robbery if this guy is not there.
Well, especially since the police don't have any records of good records of all the guns that they own, etc., and we don't know how many guns are coming into the country.
But doesn't that point fingers or raise eyebrows as to the details that are shrouded in this story?
There are so many things.
He's the mastermind, and he has most of the information surrounding. He planned the whole operation.
He's the alleged mastermind. There are so many things that it raises questions about.
Absolutely.
But the most important thing is beyond this particular case.
Exactly.
The most important thing
Death
is
in custody.
which is why I started
Death in
from
custody.
that. Is the police habits, the police penchant for killing people in custody.
Extrajudicial killing.
Yes, it's something that they've been doing since before any of us here was born.
And what does that say about us as a society? It says why, how we don't have value for human lives. That's what it says about us in society, because we hear this, we look away from it, it's another one.
But do you see this as a deliberate attempt to cover up facts?
It's possible.
Naturally.
Again, it's possible.
Naturally.
But again, it's the bigger issue really is this, it's this
It's the value of life.
bad habits by the police.
For me, your thoughts?
Concerning that, trying to cover up facts, I think sometimes the police plays into controversial theories a lot by their act of trying to keep information away, by not being transparent, and that kind of attitude can only be viewed as guilt. Guilt of you're trying to cover up something when you're trying to keep information away for so long, and as a matter of fact, lying.
All right, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. So we'll move on to this next story now. This one before us has the headline, Court insists Dokpesi must justify received 2.1 billion naira from Dansuki from the Vanguard newspaper and the Guardian newspaper, pardon me. The Federal High Court in Abuja yesterday ruled against the no-case submission filed by the former founder of Dar Investment and Holdings Company Limited, the owners of the popular TV station, African Independent Television. Recall that he was alleged to have received payments from Dansuki, who is still, held in custody by the DSS. And then, as it is now, he said at the time when he was first queried about this case, he said the payment was for media and political campaign for the 2015 general election. But then the court, Dokpesi himself, filed an application, saying that this case, it was in no case submission.
That it's a load of nonsense. That's what he filed. And one of the reasons I find this interesting is that look, if somebody gives me money to do something, which is what Dokpesi is saying, I was given this money was for me to was for services, right? Was for services which my station, my company was supposed to render.
Political campaign.
Right. Whatever it was, whether it's whatever it was, providing drinks. Surely there will be a receipt. Surely there would have been a proposal. Surely there would have been a contract. All you would have to do, if it were that straightforward, is to say, here's the contract. Here's when it was signed. This is the project plan. This is how far we got to. End of story. And of course, the judge would have no doubt, because we must remember that the way the law works on evidence, not on truth, right? So if you don't have evidence to back up what you know to be true, then it doesn't, it literally dies.
Well,
at that point.
his own stance is the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission had closed this corruption case
No,
against him.
not closed it. That's what I had to ask. It's the way this thing is written. It's not that they had what do people do in court?
Closed in a technical term
yes.
means that they've called all their
witnesses.
Their evidence.
Right.
They're now calling on him to enter his defense.
So this is what the exchange that was going on in court. So now let's go back to it. So Dokpesi, I think yes, I understand him wanting to say, look, this is a nonsense. Can we, dear judge, throw this out? Present your evidence. Let him do so. But I don't think, according to this story, we haven't seen any evidence that's been submitted, at least not strong enough for the judge to be able to say, I strike it out. So hereby, so that's why the judge said, look, your application is nonsense. Go ahead. Go on, please.
After the ESS closes its case, you have an option of filing the no case petition before you enter your defense, basically saying that the prosecution has not proved all the elements of the crime. There's no need for me to put in defense anyway. That if you consider the evidence, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. Basically, that's what the no case submission does. And so now that it's been dismissed by the judge says, I think there's enough there for you to come and defend
exactly.
yourself. So come defend yourself.
Exactly, which is where if you had your evidence, you can submit it. So, but let's just remember Dansuki is still in detention, and this is one of the nooses around his neck. So we keep watching.
Okay, thank you for that. For me, I'm going to go to you for this next story from the New Telegraph. Senate is summoning Amaechi over the exclusion of Eastern Rail Line. This happened just yesterday, and this matter was brought before the House by, it was raised by Akwa Ibom, basically, who noted, according to the article, that the exclusion of the Eastern Corridor was a dangerous signal. Do you remember that in 2017, Senator Aina Abaribe had also brought up a similar motion? Akwa Ibom had pointed out to say, oh, the withdrawal of General Electric is worrisome, but again, a clarification had to be made, because do you remember, General Electric have not withdrawn, they just stopped dealing in transportation. It's one of their subsidiaries that's going to be handling that. But there is this general sense where people feel as though the Eastern Rail Line is being excluded. So I guess, Cheta, I'm going to stay with you for this story.
Well, this particular story, sir, or this issue, the senators are right to be worried, because there seems to be an overemphasis on what is now called the Lakaji corridor, which is essentially from Lagos to Jibia in Katsina through Kano. And almost to the exclusion of the Eastern Economic Corridor, which was called the Second National Economic Corridor. There's almost no literature on that. It's like since the last major dredging in 1964, it's like that corridor has been abandoned. And you see, given the size of Nigeria, the sheer size of Nigeria, and then the geographical distribution of our ports, it makes no sense.
Okay, but just a couple of things to note, though, as well as in official statements put up the Federal Ministry of Transportation, which had included and said that they would deal with that. Also, May of this year, there's an article that came out where a U.S. firm had committed to contributing the $10 billion that would be required to develop that Lagos to Calabar access, which would also include
Lagos to Calabar is
and a
not
number
the
of others.
Eastern Economic Corridor. The Eastern Economic Corridor, in real terms, that's Port Harcourt.
But it includes Port Harcourt.
Wait, listen. It's the Port Harcourt Calabar axis to Maiduguri. So here's the point. See, you see, when the British were developing the rail system, they knew that the country was too big to rely just on Lagos. So they had this rail line essentially from Guru, which is not too far from Maiduguri, that all the way down to Port Harcourt. That is the axis that they're talking about that has more or less been abandoned.
And that's the axis that I just mentioned.
No, you talked about the east-west line, which is Lagos to Calabar. That's what Rotimi Amaechi has talked about developing. We are talking of Port Harcourt to Maiduguri. The continuation,
I understand that. But let's not ignore the fact that they had said they will address it. But right from the onset of this administration, they had said that this is what we're starting with, which is the Lagos to which is the point that Abaribe and Ikweremadu are talking about. If you look at almost all of Nigeria's economic plans since the 70s, it always talks of the Lakaji corridor, almost to the exclusion. So it helps to fuel paranoia in certain quarters that there's a deliberate attempt to ignore the Eastern line. I guess my question then is that should we be fueling that paranoia? Because at the end of the day, you've got to start with
it's become a Senate issue.
But I'm just trying to ask. And
then there are studies which actually indicate that one of the reasons why economic activity has died in the Kanuri region, the Lake Chad Basin, which has essentially fueled Boko Haram, is because of lack of economic activity, because of the death of the Eastern Corridor.
I'm just trying to ask about practicality, right? Because we know that
practicality.
Can I finish the question?
Yeah, practicality in this respect. Sorry, I'm
not. You're not letting me finish the question.
Practicality in this respect.
Okay, but you haven't let me finish the question.
My elbow is ready.
What I'm going to ask.
I'm going beyond. Practicality in this respect is let the government get out of this thing. Remove rails from the exclusive list, and then let private business be the ones to make the decision as to where is best for them to develop fastest. My own theory is if private business is allowed to do this, then it will be the Lagos Calabar route that will be done first.
Again, which is what I was trying to get to.
Go on, Folu.
I was just trying to ask that. Okay, the federal government has said this is what we can deal with right now. We are trying to get in private business. We have asked Chinese firms. We have asked U.S. firms, but all of this still does need to go to the Senate. That is now making declarations as though they're not asking them these questions, as though they don't have a working committee on this, which they do. So I'm just trying to understand why.
To my knowledge, there's no bill, no executive bill has been presented, or no executive action has been moved with regard to removing real from the exclusive list.
Oh, I hear. Okay, so that's a separate issue.
No,
then.
it's you can't get private capital really to do this when the government can at short notice just ends the whole thing.
Exclusive list. Thank you very much. That's what it comes back to. All right, let's move on to our next story.
Our next story is from Vanguard newspaper. Labour plans to demand for arrears of minimum wage. Ms. Ireti, I'll come to you with this story. Now, Labour is asking the federal government, really as part of the agreements or part of the demands that they're making to the federal government, that they should honor this new demand of paying 2 years arrears of the salaries that has been owed. What are your thoughts?
For me, just to burst out laughing.
Yeah.
Yes, my thoughts. Okay. Okay, so
Go back to this.
we're back to this. First and foremost, okay, I was discussing this with Funmi downstairs, which is why she's laughing at you. We're talking about it.
Okay.
And you're asking for arrears of what exactly? I think the 18K.
66%.
Yes, 18K. The 18K was agreed some years ago. Remind me what?
2012.
Thank you, 2012. So the 18K was agreed in 2012. Yes, we do know that there are state governors who haven't paid it, irrespective of the fact that they are yet. The majority of state governors are yet to adhere to that minimum wage limit. You are now asking for a rise, right? So this is where logic and common sense really needs to prevail. And I'm very, very, very much for people getting paid what they deserve. I really, really do. Even if they are evil servants, aka civil servants. Never mind that. Now, back to it. Ayuba Waba is saying, look, the government are playing games with us. That's what he's saying. They're playing games with us. And basically, he's threatening. He's not saying, I'm going to say, if they continue to behave like this with us, we actually might just ask for 2 years arrears. Well, actually, I don't think that's the right way to do this.
Why not?
Because, thank you, good question. It's either you're going to do something and you have the legal right to do it, not necessarily the moral right, the legal right to do it. If you do, don't make it a threat. Put it forward during the negotiations. Because he said, look, we've sat this, it's taken us a long time to get to the point of the tripartite negotiations. And you know, we've agreed on 30,000. Again, he's misleading people. They haven't agreed on 30,000. That is yet to be agreed. So you keep fueling and you keep misleading your followers or your members, if you like. And that's where I have a problem with him. Going further down, anyway, very quickly, because Folu's doing the hand signals. He did say something, and this is important. We must look at this. So the international on the minimum wage have to consider the following 5 factors.
Police seals the assembly complex. Now we know there's been drama even within the state house, but what are your thoughts on this story?
Okay, so it's been barely 1 month in office. All of this boils down to partisan nature of our security agencies. It's something that is very well known in Nigeria. I think it's a fact that we stop trying to hide after a while. Our security agencies mostly dances to the tune of wherever in office, and therefore states that are ruled by the opposition party, that or the federal government, will really get very jittery at any sign of movement of security personnel that have been assigned to their state. And every time we talk about issues like this, what will now happen if we have state police? And some people have argued that this is why we cannot have state police, because it would sort of
it will become personal
to
security.
governors having their own
Private armies,
sort of, and to be able to enforce their own. The crisis is shameful, like every other form of National Assembly or House of Assembly crisis we've ever had in Nigeria. The sealing of that complex by anti-robbery, anti-cultism units, and it's ridiculous. I'm hoping we don't see too much of this coming down to the elections, especially when you consider that further down the story, PDP is already raising their theories as to what the APC intends to do for the PDP-controlled states, and I don't know. Should I say it's the political season? Let's hope that this tides over without too much casualties.
Thank you very much for that, Funmi. Cheta, up next from Vanguard newspaper. An Igbo presidency depends on Southeast support for Buhari's re-election. Apparently, according to the Vanguard, this is what the presidency told people in the northeast zone of the country just yesterday. Now, speaking to newsmen after a meeting between President Buhari and the southeast governors at the presidential villa, the secretary of the government of the federation, that's Boss Mustafa, said the visit was remarkable, had corrected the impression that the federal government was not doing anything for the people of the zone. It does go on to talk about bill. It talks about a number of other things. Cheta, what are your thoughts on?
First things first, I'm a member of the Southeast Society of Professionals and two other pan-Igbo groups. And one general consensus that we have in our discussions is this Igbo presidency that everybody is always dangling like one rotten carrot. It doesn't really, it's not what we really want. Open the economy so that we can sell market properly. That's what we want, not all these things. So when you are talking of all this tribal thing, as if a discussion that we had in one of our fairly recent meetings a few months back was, if you look at this tribal presidency, as it were, the North has had more people in presidential or at the top of the pyramid in Nigeria for longer than you listen. But then look, compare with the development indices, and then tell us the results. Having an Igbo man in Aso Rock does not guarantee development for an Igbo.
Of course not.
It doesn't. So when they start playing all this politics, you know that it is they are talking about for their friends and just for power for a small circle. It's nonsense. So let us move away from this and talk about how we can actually open up the economy so that we can pull the bulk of Nigerians out of poverty. Not this, oh yeah, come chop, make I come chop.
Thank you very much. Funmi, I'm coming back to you before we go over to Ms. Ireti talking about Lawan, because that's a juicy story which we'll get to. But we have the Nigeria Employers Consultative Association suing the National Lottery Commission for allegedly disrupting their operations. Now, this suit is happening on behalf of one of their member companies at Nigerian Breweries PLC, and they're saying that the shutdown of their Lagos office, is problematic for them, saying that before they go into any consumer sales or promotions, Nigerian Breweries make sure they're vetted and approved by the Advertising Practitioners Council of Nigeria. So really, where does the National Lottery Commission come off?
Okay,
Just getting involved.
This has been an issue that has been on for a while, not just in respect of consumer promos and all of that, but even with respect to federal and state. So federal have their own lottery commission, and states have their own, and it's caused a lot of issues. One aspect of ease of doing business that we have a serious problem with is a lot of our businesses are over-regulated. We have too many regulatory agencies
with overlapping
control, and which always necessarily involves extra spending for the company. So yes, it has been a major issue. I know that concerning the National Lotteries Commission, the federal and state have been to court over who has the right to regulate the business in the state and all of that. It really is hectic and terrible for businesses who have to report to numerous regulatory agencies over
expensive, expensive.
Very expensive,
yeah.
Yes. And when you think about things like promotions and all of that, there could be an umbrella organization dealing with things like that. So we have the Consumer Protections Council, like that should be the umbrella body dealing with all things relating to the consumer, and then let the Lottery Commission regulate lottery businesses.
All right, thank you very much. Let's move on.
All right, this story is from Premium Times newspaper. So the alleged $3 million bribe, Otedola appears in court, insists Lawan demanded bribe. So the main prosecution witness in the trial of the former member of the House of Representatives, Farouk Lawan, who was the chair of the subcommittee investigating the multi-billion-dollar fraud associated with government fuel subsidy during the administration of former President Goodluck Jonathan. The question was raised, and Otedola said that he demanded for the bribe $3 million and he paid $500,000.
So here's what's interesting. Folu said earlier, this is the juicy story. They don't call us freshly pressed for nothing.
Okay.
Yeah, this is really juicy because even Funmi was like, oh my God, Ms. Ireti, you've got the exciting story.
Okay.
So we must all remember, because this is quite a while ago. Was it last year that this all came out? So Lawan, who became ostracized, if you like, from the house, Otedola comes out and says, look, Mr. presenting himself to be so perfect, you asked me, demanded for $3 million bribe from me. Now, Otedola is finally in court and he's giving evidence on what he says. And I will continue to quote him. He said, yes, he said, so there was a video played in court where Otedola gave, or Lawan was given $500,000, okay, as the first payment. And apparently Lawan then went back and asked for more. Lawan claimed that Otedola forced him to collect the money. Otedola said he did demand for the money. This is a quote. If he did not demand, why will he collect an expected balance of $2.5 million? He mentioned to me that $3 million will be shared by himself and some other members of the house. He goes further down. He said, look, because one of Lawan's defense was that Otedola had been mentioned in the whole fuel subsidy thing. And Otedola said, look, I did not offer him $3 million because I was one of them. At this point, I think I can imagine him banging his chest, you know, Tarzan way. But because I was one of the biggest players in the business, and I reported the matter initially when I found out about the scam. And he mentioned to me, he being Lawan, mentioned to me that several companies that were involved in the scam were paying. I reported it to the SSS. Misery adds, as the good citizen that I am, quote, not quote. Okay, so it goes on, and anyway, the day ends, or shall I say the case or the day in court ends with Lawan's lawyer then says, sorry, judge, I'm sick. I can't say anything. We need to come back again. Because it's like one of those sucker punches where you haven't been ready.
Overwhelmed by the video evidence that's presented in
What do you mean, do I think? You do have a habit of asking the obvious.
Because
do I think?
You sounded like you were on the side of Lawan.
I'm not on anybody's side. Okay. I'm on the side of Nigeria. We must always remember that.
All right.
I'm going by what's in front of me. And I'm saying, do I think? If I was the defense, of course I would be like, case adjourned. What do you people say for me? Go on. What do you people say? Case adjourned, or asking for an adjournment, Your Honor. I need to go to the loo, mate. You know, the guy said, look, I'm sick. I can't speak. I can't cross-examine right now. So obviously he needs to go back to his clients and say, what's going on here? Where do we go from here?
Thank you, Ms. Ireti.
All right, thank you. On that note, we've come to the end of Freshly Pressed for this morning. We will just go through a few of your comments. Tunji sent in a message up on WhatsApp to say, listen, it just doesn't make sense to develop the Abuja-Kaduna rail line that the government admits is making a loss and therefore cannot pay for itself to the detriment of the Eastern Corridor. That is Tunji's submission on that. Meanwhile, up on our live stream, it's a very lively conversation saying Adekunle Fasuga says, here we go again. Why waste time on this case in court? It will soon happen to Evans, the notorious kidnapper. Very interesting. While 29 Hugo is just great to listen to us from Maiduguri. We appreciate you. Thank you very much. And Victor Musa says labor is being greedy. You have not yet finished succeeding with your minimum wage and they're already asking for arrears. Are they serious at all?
Exactly.
Very interesting. Thank you everyone for sending in those comments. We appreciate you, and thank you to our analysts for this morning. Please find them on social media. Chickster is Cheta Nwaeze. You can find Mr. Ireti Bakare Yusuf as Sisi Oge Lagos, and you can find Funmi Odude as the same name, Funmi Odude, up on Twitter. Coming up next, we will be talking entertainment inside the grapevine at 8:15. So keep it locked to Smooth 98.1.
I invest. Investing made
Need to keep an eye on the time.
by Sterling Bank.
No, that Otedola's story was so juicy. We could have all had a good laugh. Because, I mean, like, how often